Great. Peace, Ellie. What's up? Huh? No. Yeah, you are part of the camera. You're the fourth layer. I can't break the fourth layer. What do you don't know nothing about camera work? I know, right? You got no lines in this movie. Peace. So we're going to start with the things to be read at every meeting. Everyone's personal favorite, caveat emptor. Moors are men, upright, independent, and fearless, who care for their loved ones and follow the prophet to a destiny which is not uncertain nor unknown. They are fortified by the impregnable doctrine built upon love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. It is therefore folly at its greatest heights for smelly culprits with their insidious plans to invade such a realm. They try and try, but their own bad planning brings down wrath upon their heads, like the sword old Damocles had. Intrigue and scurrilous cunnings find a difficult path to travel within the ranks of the Moors. This is so because the Moorish movement has been well planned by Prophet Noble Drew Ali, whose latent powers are abundant, unknown, and may be called into action as a matter of defense at any moment. Prophet Noble Drew Ali knows the people within his ranks who are interested. They are the vanguard of the Moorish movement as the Moorish hordes increase here in America. All of the Moors are active, not passive. A member's interest can only be in one direction, and having traveled over the roads years before, the Prophet knows where every member is along the road. A few feet below is another road where schemers work, where traitors grin, and culprits bask in the sun. They think they are on the same road with the true Moors, but the Moors are high above on a pinnacle where they might view the destructionists as they fall for the last time and their bones bleach in the sultry midday sun. Hungry scavengers flying high catch scent, devour, and leave crying out, caveat emptor, cast out the dead carcass. The Moors high above see these plotters, purveyors, the worst that exist, hurl themselves downward by their own works as the hawks await. To be proclaimed at every meeting. I'm glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is the host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people of our side of the nation that claimed that I was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they're working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so that they may take charge of the situation. I've notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I'm calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance, and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works, which I have performed in the past few years, Prophet Noble Drew Ali. To the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Islam, this is the instructions from your prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Your prophet. Your prophet. Be faithful unto your forefathers' divine and national creed, that you will be blessed for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and his judgment is on now, but the weak can comprehend it not. The end of time is drawing near, so says Allah to his divine prophet, I, Noble Drew Ali. That's funny, because I seen someone post today that those people saying the end of time is coming. They're deceiving people because time is an illusion. But the end of an age is the end of time. The end of a year is the end of time. The end of the day is the end of time. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, a cycle. Yeah, because time is measured by a cycle. So you can mark the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new one.
The cycle renews, but
Yeah,
it still has the beginning to an end.
Yeah.
It starts over again.
yeah. So they obviously don't comprehend time. If they think that time is illusion, time is not an illusion. It's a measurement of a cycle.
And yes, it is man-made, but
Yes, the measurement is man-made,
right.
but the cycle itself is not man-made. So people, they just say things to make it seem like they know something, but they actually don't. So the end of time is drawing near, so says Allah to his divine prophet, I, Noble Ali. And that is why many hearts have been turned to stone, and many have eyes to see but cannot see, ears to hear but cannot hear, lest they would be confounded of their sins. These are trying hours now, dear Moors, and guess what? Every evil spirit is moving, and what are they trying to do? They're trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. Now, these past week or few weeks, with the people that we've been talking to about a certain situation, those people have eyes to see but cannot see, ears to hear but cannot hear, lest they will be confounded of their sins, and they are trying every single one of our people's minds by saying, did the prophet really say that? I'm just going to listen to what the ancestors tell me. The spirit told me this. But they're not telling the people their spirit inside their body is telling them that. The ancestors inside their body is telling them that. So they're telling themselves that. They just have to create this middleman complex between the ancestors and you, them being the middleman. So I'll read that again. These are trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving, and they are trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid, and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah, love, and the spirit of your forefathers, I think someone's at the door, you fear not what you hear or see, but will sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your prophet. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet. So when they say, I don't know if the prophet really said that, when it's in the Quran that he prepared, when they say, I don't know if the prophet really said that, when what he said is in his newspaper, those are your enemies. Not just them, but that's an example of spotting your enemy. Those who say, well, you're not a Moor because of A, B, C, D, and E, even though your bloodline is Moorish, they're your enemy. Yeah. Facts. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see, but will sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your prophet. Why? Because it's not about you. There's a chapter in the Quran where Jesus is talking about Allah doesn't want sacrifices. If you're going to sacrifice anything, sacrifice your life in service to others. Allah doesn't need shrines. Allah doesn't need burnt offerings. If you're going to offer anything, offer food to the hungry. If you're going to kill an animal as an offering, if someone eats meat or carcass, let them eat that. Don't let them starve. So your sacrifice to one another is your sacrifice to Allah. It's that simple. All of us. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. You're absolutely correct. It's a cycle. It takes time for that to happen.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest, and the ones that speak against your divine and national principles of your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah will bless you for your good work. Peace, your divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Then the prophet warns all Muslims to be read at every meeting.
What, to stop all radical speakers?
You're correct. I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical speeches while at work, in their homes, or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be a severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings towards the temple or the prophet, or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. Karma. All true Moors will, that means that's a choice, huh? And must, that means that's an obligation, huh? Obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. Any confusion on that? The problem is the very human being, the angel manifests into human flesh that brought us this information that we are not Negro, black, colored, Indian, West Indian, Hispanic, Afro-Rican, Latina, X, etc. Latinx, excuse me.
The X, so there's no Latina or Latino.
That very person that brought us the information, we'd be nothing without that person, right? As it relates to this information. So now subsequently, any human being alive right now trying to claim supreme authority in this movement, how? Any human being trying to question what the prophet said, how? Because without him, you wouldn't be wearing that turban or fez. You wouldn't be calling yourself a Moor. You wouldn't even know about civics. You wouldn't even know about the Moor Science Temple of America. You wouldn't even know what nationality is. You would still be running around calling yourself a crayon. So, all true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. No confusion. If you lose confidence, if they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. That state is that state of mind. So keep running around talking about you're a crayon. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Drew Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet therefore is sending out the divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Peace. Your divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Now, when you read the divine warning by the prophet for the nations, Noble Drew Ali talked about all beings being identified by one free national name. Then he stated that we are American citizens. Then he stated that the 14th and 15th Amendment aren't necessary for the salvation of my people and citizens. So now that's two separate jurisdictions. Then when you read the Quran, the divine origin of the Asiatic nations, he'll tell you that the Moorish Americans and the Mexicans of North America, the Haitians, Cubans, El Salvadorians, Nicaraguans, Chileans, Colombians, Brazilians, etc., all of those are Muslims. Then when you look up the definition of Muslim, it will say a Moor. Then when you look up the definition of Moor, in certain dictionaries it will say Northwest African. In other dictionaries it will say any dark-skinned person. In other dictionaries it will say a Negro, especially a black man, right? Then when you look at the colored version of history that we get, anytime you see a dark-skinned person from South America, they call them Afro-Latinas, as if they were brought on a slave ship here to America, right? To cover up the fact that we've been here and we ain't no Latin nothing, except we're the originators of the Latin language, right? The reason why they need to teach us that we're Latin American and Hispanic, etc., is to make us think that we're from somewhere else, right? But then when you look at the Olmec statues of ancient America, you see they got big noses, big lips, woolly hair, and they'll even have this fez wrapped in a turban. You'll see it on Olmec heads. And archaeologists will say those Olmecs were the first, or one of the oldest and first civilizations here in America. Then again, when you read what the prophet said about the dominion of Africa, you'll see that America's name was Amexem. And you can see that from the word Old Amexem, or the two words Old Amexem, or the phrase Old Amexem, you'll see where the word Olmec is derived from. Then when you study Pangea, which is when all the continents were together, if you get my second book, I referenced the map of Pangea from a European scholar from the University of Florida, and he talks about how the plates in Florida and Georgia match the plates in Northwest Africa. So when you connect that, you'll see that North America is Northwest Africa. So when they talk about those so-called Afro-Latinas and Latinos, they were really here already, right? So what we're dealing with is, again, peace. What we're dealing with, essentially, when it comes to the division of our people, is the Willie Lynch syndrome or Willie Lynch letter. Now, I'm not here to argue if Willie Lynch was real or not, but we're suffering from the instructions of that manual, which was take the mind, leave the body, and divide our people. So they teach some of us that we're shipped over here on ships. Then they teach another group of us that we're Indians. And then they teach another group of us that we're Hispanics, Latino, African American, etc., when we're all really the same people, right? So the point of this class is to talk about ICE. ICE is the immigration services company that the United States uses to deport South Moroccans from North America. So South Americans from North America. Now, the reason why this is a problem is because, one, when you know the origin of the United States and realize that all these pale-skinned Europeans who are not Americans were brought to this landmass by the dark-skinned people of North, South, and Central America, you begin to see that they have no authority to do what they're doing. Additionally, when you study the different treaties with Spain, Portugal, France, Britain, England, Germany, etc., during the 1600s, you'll see that these Europeans didn't conquer America the way they claim to have done it. Again, when you study the Anglo-Moroccan alliance, you'll see that the only way that these Europeans were allowed to be here freely was because of treaty negotiations with the Sultan of Morocco. Right? Then when you study the Prime Minister of Turkey admitted to the Muslim community of South America that Muslim seafarers arrived in America at least 500 years prior to Christopher Columbus. Those Muslims are Moors. Those Moors today now think that they're black, Negro, colored, Hispanic, Latin American, African American, etc., etc., etc. So what we're suffering from presently is a continuation of the Spanish Inquisition waged against the Moors, who were called Spanish at one point, who now think that they're Negro, black, colored, African American, etc. Right? So when you read my first book, you'll see in 1861 there was a coup within the United States Republic. Since that coup, and after a series of long wars, this is where our suffering comes from, right? So now when South Americans come to North America, they think, well, since the United States is the de facto administrative power here, our people in South America and Central America and the islands think that they have to get naturalized through the United States, right? I'm not sure if they're familiar with law, but if they don't know, the United States is claiming the ability to naturalize persons via the 14th Amendment, right? Now, I typed a lot of this up, but just to get to the point, the United States has no actual authority to naturalize anyone via the 14th Amendment. So now when you think about that, if they have no ability to naturalize anyone, that means they have no ability to deport anyone. Get it? Because if you can't even grant naturalization, then how can you punish someone for not being a citizen and then deport them? Say again? The Americans, well, when you go to the Noah Webster's 1828 dictionary, the American dictionary on the American Heritage Dictionary on the English language, and you look up American, it'll say one of the various copper-toned natives found in America. So these Europeans have no authority to A, claim to be Americans, and B, deport any other Americans from North America to anywhere else in the Americas, right? The issue is we're dealing with de facto war powers where they're claiming that authority because of arms, right? So now administratively, we have to deal with them first. So what I'm going to show our people is a few documents. Can you put this on the chair, please? I'm going to need that later. This right here, y'all seen it already. This is the proceedings and debates of the 90th Congress, First Session, Volume 113, Part 12, June 12, 1967, from the Library of Congress. These proceedings of Congress stated that the 14th Amendment is unconstitutional. And then it explains it. Right? So, presently, our people are suffering. Many so-called Spanish people who think that they're Spanish, who are really Moors. We've been suffering from our family members being deported because they're not U.S. citizens. But I just showed you the law upon which they're deporting people isn't even law. It's called color of law. So that would be your argument in court, right? Also, if you look up Corpus Juris Secundum, Volume 7, if I'm not mistaken, and you look up the definition of an attorney, it'll say an attorney is an officer of the court, and their first obligation is to the court, not to you. So our family members from South America and Central America, who some of them don't speak English really well, and we're taught to doubt our own ability and our own intellect, when we get into the situation of deportation or dealing with ICE, who was founded in 2003, we often feel helpless, powerless, and don't know what to do, so we hire an attorney. But when we hire an attorney, we don't realize that we're giving up all of our rights and admitting or submitting to a jurisdiction which doesn't even have authority to do what they're doing. This is why we're called chattel property, because the Europeans have this philosophy. Those people, or a world of people, who refuse to use their intelligence are to be treated as if they're animals who don't have intelligence, right? So when we refuse to read and we refuse to see that this attorney looks just like that magistrate up there that's trying to deport me, if we refuse to use common sense, that's our fault, right? If we refuse to read the United States Code, Title 28, it is Title 18. Title 18, Chapter 6, Subchapter 176, Subsection 3002, Number 15A, the United States is a corporation, not a country, right? If you don't use common sense and realize I can't be a citizen of a corporation, right? That means they can't deport you. Secondly, that means they're not even government, right? Thirdly, that means the United States isn't even a country, right? So you can't enter into the country of the United States because the word country means land. The United States is not land. Tracking? So if we keep refusing to use our intellect, if we keep refusing to defend ourselves, if we keep refusing to speak up for our people, then we will remain in the situation that we're in, right? So without further ado, I'm going to talk about ICE and some principles of law that we need to use to help our people combat the terrible situation that we're in, dealing with forced assimilation, genocide, removing Aboriginal and indigenous people from their land, and human trafficking. Am I hair in the way? Hmm?
Can you slide this down?
Shit set up the way I had it That good? So ICE is the Immigration and Customs Enforcement arm of the United States, right? So I'm just going to jump right into it. The basis for ICE unconstitutional and unlawful deportation of American citizens who have been tricked into naturalization or the concept of naturalization and the alleged status of being an illegal alien is the 14th Amendment, which I already went over, right? The constitutionality of the 14th Amendment is the basis of law in which it appears the United States has the authority to naturalize and deport people.
It's better. I can aim at this, to be honest.
So go ahead. Well, there's a glare now because I moved. Is there a glare? All right. The 14th Amendment is known in law as color of law, a legal term which means fake law. So if you don't know, or if you're not aware of this book, Black's Law Dictionary 4th edition and Black's Law Dictionary 5th edition, they are dictionaries specifically for legal and lawful terms and phrases of ancient and modern jurisprudence. So if you don't know, get those books. Also, if you speak Moorish Latin, which is Spanish, please translate what I'm saying to our family members who need this information. So pursuant to the proceedings and debates of the 90th Congress, excuse the typo, first session, volume 113, part 12 of June 12, 1967, which is what I showed you earlier, it was publicly, excuse the typo, declared amongst Congress that the 14th Amendment is unconstitutional, void, and unenforceable. So there's going to be typos in here because I was up late doing this on the couch. And it was inspired by watching Orange is the New Black, right? It's the 4th season, and whatever season it is. And they were showing our people in detention centers held by ICE. And I actually cried watching it because it's based on real issues. You know, as, you know, I was branded black when I was growing up. So we're kind of in that mindset of the Negro black colored mindset. We think that blacks and so-called Hispanics and Latinos aren't the same people, so we don't even communicate unless we're in the projects and we're forced, you know, to communicate. But we don't realize the struggle that other Moorish nationals are having on our land because we're inactive. We're so inactive that we let European foreigners take over control of our land. So now what they're doing to our family members of South and Central America, they're destroying their families. Women not being able to see their children. Children not being able to see their mothers. Fathers being taken away from the household because they're not U.S. citizens. Because they're not taught that the U.S. can't even naturalize you because you're an American citizen by blood. Because Mexico's part of America, Haiti's part of America, Brazil's part of America, Chile is, Mexico's part of America, right? Colombia's part of America. So since all these places are part of America, you're an American citizen, period. And these Europeans have no actual lawful authority to deport you and destroy your family, right? So if the so-called black people aren't brought to this information and realize since you're on your homeland and you're not administrating your land, you're allowing these Europeans to do it for you, they're damaging your brothers and sisters in the South. So this is our responsibility. And if our brothers and sisters want to come up to North America from Central America, the islands, and South America, they might want to help us help them establish our political status here in North America. That's why the prophet said this is the only salvation for all American citizens to depend upon for their earthly salvation. It's this and this alone, period. Right? So Moors, you might want to wake the hell up. So now, an immigration and customs enforcement detainer is not a warrant. It is not issued by a judge. And it is not based on a finding of probable cause. It is therefore a violation of all natural persons' constitutional rights. Right? Now, this is the 14th Amendment, which states the people, or the right of the people, to be secured in their persons means you can't be taken. Your houses means your house can't be searched. Your papers, which means they can't go through your documents, and effects, meaning anything you own, against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Right? So in an ICE detainer is not that. Which means if they try to come to your house with an ICE detainer, they're violating your constitutional rights, and it's your obligation to know that. And don't hire some pale-skinned attorney or even an attorney that looks like you, also claiming to be a U.S. citizen, working for them. Don't trust them either. The ultimate goal of this provision is to protect people's right to privacy and freedom from unreasonable intrusions by the United States. In general, most warrantless searches of private premises are prohibited under the Fourth Amendment unless specific exceptions apply. For instance, a warrantless search may be lawful if an officer has asked and is given consent to search. If the search is incident to a lawful arrest, if there is probable cause to search, and there is exigent circumstances calling for the warrantless search. Exigent circumstances exist in situations where people are in immediate danger, where evidence faces imminent destruction, or prior to a suspect's imminent escape. So those are the only situations where a warrantless search is called for, right? The courts must determine what constitutes a search or seizure under the Fourth Amendment. If the conduct challenged does not fall within the Fourth Amendment, the individual may not enjoy protection under the Fourth Amendment, right? So now I have to deal with what is a search. A search under the Fourth Amendment occurs when a governmental employee or agent of the government violates an individual's reasonable expectation of privacy. This is important to note because your citizenship is your private interest, and you cannot be arbitrarily asked for your national allegiance or citizenship. Strip searches and visual body cavity searches, including anal or genitalia inspections, constitute reasonable searches under the Fourth Amendment when supported by a probable cause and conducted in a reasonable manner. They can't just do it just because. A dog sniff inspection is invalid under the Fourth Amendment if inspections violates a reasonable expectation of privacy. Electronic surveillance is also considered a search under the Fourth Amendment. Fourth Amendment. B, what is seizure of a person? A seizure of a person within the meaning of the Fourth Amendment occurs when the police conduct would communicate to a reasonable person, taking into account the circumstances surrounding the encounter, that the person is not free to ignore the police presence and leave at his will. Two elements must be present to constitute a seizure of a person. First, there must be a show of authority by the police officer. So now, if you're not a citizen of the United States, that's called diversity of citizenship. According to the Constitution, only federal courts have jurisdiction over diversity. So no municipal or state policy enforcer should be pulling you over and dealing with immigration. So you have the right to resist that so-called arrest. Right? Presence of handcuffs or weapons, the use of forceful language, and physical contact are each strong indicators of authority. Now, that's color of authority. Because I could walk around with a gun, I could walk around with handcuffs, and I could walk around saying, "Get on the ground." That doesn't mean I have the authority to arrest you. Right? This is why they're de facto, which means they exist in fact. So we have to deal with them in reality. But that does not mean they have any lawful authority to do what they're doing. Right? Second, the person being seized must submit to the authority, which means you have to agree, don't you? Right? Now, this is where this is a side of Moor science that Moors don't like to talk about. Organizing and fighting off police when they violate our rights. Nobody wants to talk about that. No one even wants to get involved in that. But that's absolutely what we have to start doing. Because if they're being domestic terrorists on our land, and they have gangs of units arresting our people, then how do we prevent that with just one person? We can't. We have to be organized, right? A warrantless arrest may be justified where probable cause and urgent need are present prior to the arrest. Probable cause is present when the police have a reasonable belief in the guilt of the suspect based on facts and information prior to the arrest. So a lot of, I was dealing with a Moor, excuse me while I drink my water. I was assisting a Moor who was of Haitian descent, who was unlawfully detained by ICE, and they were trying to deport her back to Haiti. I kept telling her to stay on the principle that you're a Moorish American and an American citizen, period. I kept telling her, don't get an attorney, period, right? In the time frame in which she kept saying she was Moorish American and she didn't want an attorney, they kept telling her that Haiti would not accept her, right? Because one of the laws dealing with deportation is that wherever the United States is trying to send you, that country has to accept you, right? So in that instance, Moors should be organized, right, as a government to accept our people, right? So during that time frame, they wouldn't send her anywhere because they couldn't, right? As soon as she got an attorney, guess what happened to her? She was deported. Why? Because as soon as you get an attorney, their obligation is to the United States, not you. So by getting an attorney, you submit to their jurisdiction, meaning you agree that they can do anything that they want to you. Now, I'm telling you this information because this is a real life thing. Real human beings are being deported for no goddamn reason. And she kept asking them, what did I do? What did I do? Who did I hurt? What did I do? And they wouldn't tell her nothing. Why? Because she didn't do anything wrong. You understand what I'm saying? Additionally, when you read the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights, it says every person has the right to leave his or her home country. What about that says you have to be naturalized? What about that says you have to be a citizen of the country that you're going to? None of it. Right? So ICE is rounding our people up, claiming that our people are criminals when they actually haven't done anything wrong. Because in order for a crime to exist, this is stare decisis and res judicata. This is based on the law, not my freaking opinion. In order for a crime to exist, there must be an injured party, meaning there must be someone that you hurt. So all of our people held in ICE right now who have not hurt anyone, they're being held there unlawfully. Now, whose responsibility is that to get them out? Us. And all those people who are of Asiatic descent, who think that they're black, Hispanic, Negro, and colored, working for ICE, you're part of the goddamn problem. Because those are your people that you're putting through that terrible situation. Because you think you know what the hell you're doing when you don't even know what the law is. Read the goddamn Constitution. Because I can tell you for a fact, I served in the United States Marine Corps, and I took an oath to support and defend the goddamn Constitution, and I never even read it. I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and didn't even realize that all those persons claiming that this is a democracy are domestic terrorists. They are our enemies domestically. So don't think that we're innocent in this fight. Right? So, for instance, a warrantless arrest may be legitimate in situations where the police have a probable belief that a suspect has either committed a crime or is a threat to the public security, which being an immigrant or being from South America coming to North America is not a public threat. It's not a threat to public security. Which simply not being a U.S. citizen is neither a crime nor a threat to public safety. It has already been decided that in order for a crime to exist, there must be an injured party. Being an undocumented person is not a crime nor a threat to anyone. Can you bring this camera back to the screen, please? So now, for our people who are being unlawfully detained by ICE, if you have family members being detained by ICE, or if somehow you can see this video, use this as your defense. Right? In order for a crime to exist, there must be an injured party. And being an undocumented person is not a crime nor a threat to anyone. Now this right here scores res judicata or stare decisis. So if you're familiar with this process, if any of your family members have been unlawfully taken by the United States, you'll see on their documents that they send your family members, they often reference other cases, or they often reference United States codes. So since they do it, you do the same thing in your defense. So reference this case right here, that for a crime to exist, there must be an injured party or corpus delicti. That's what it means in Latin. There can be no sanction or penalty imposed on one because of his constitutional right. Right? Another case, with no injured party, a complaint is invalid on its face. Right? So they can't complain that you've done anything wrong without you injuring someone, which you not being a U.S. citizen is not you injuring the United States. Right? Also, the Supreme Court ruled that without a corpus delicti, which means injured party, there can be no crime. So you not being documented is not a crime, because you have the right to privacy. So why do they need documentation on you? They absolutely don't, because the 14th Amendment is unconstitutional, which means they don't need you to be a U.S. citizen, period. Additionally, this ain't their land. In every prosecution for a crime, it is necessary to establish the corpus delicti, meaning the body or elements of the crime. People versus Lopez. So now, when we're dealing with this, we're also dealing with your constitutional right to a habeas corpus, Article 1, Section 9, Clause 3, the writ of habeas corpus. Habeas corpus means you have the body. A writ of habeas corpus is sent to the federal courts, either the United States District Court or the United States Supreme Court, for them to issue the immediate release of a person being held without a crime existing or without an injured party being brought to the court of record. So if you have family members detained, whether it be ICE, by any so-called county jail, state, federal prison whatsoever, and they claim that that person committed a crime and there's no injured party, a writ of habeas corpus should be sent to the highest court of the land demanding their immediate release based on the fact that they harmed no one. The first 10 amendments to the Constitution, being the supreme law of the land, right, states that all states and federal and local governments must operate within its framework. The Sixth Amendment guarantees the right of criminal defendants, including the right to a public trial without unnecessary delay, and the right to a lawyer, the right to an impartial jury of your national peers, and the right to know who your accusers are and the nature of the charges and evidence against you. Now, this is important to note because in the Constitution it says you have the right to a speedy trial. Most of our family members are held by ICE and state so-called officials and so-called federal officials more than 70 days without trial. Yet the Congress of the de facto United States demanded that your trial has to happen within those 70 days. So if our people are held for more than 70 days, that agency holding them is violating the Constitution, which raises the federal question in court, which these people can be sued for violating the Constitution, right? So this is the Sixth Amendment. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury. So if you're Asiatic and you got dark skin and you see a bunch of pale skins on that jury, that's not an impartial jury. If you're a Mexican and you go to court and you don't see a bunch of Mexicans up there, that's not an impartial jury. If you got dark skin and you see pale skin people up there, again, that's not an impartial jury. And you get to challenge that jury, challenge their incompetence, or challenge their competency based on the law and have them removed from those seats. I don't care what the magistrate says. That's your right. So enforce that right. Right? Of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, and to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. Right? Excuse me, I'm yelling so my throat's all dry. So this is going over exactly what I just said. The right to a speedy trial is federal law which establishes time limits for carrying out the indictment and arraignment in a criminal prosecution. The right to a speedy trial is a constitutional right available to an accused person in a criminal case under the Sixth Amendment to the United States Constitution. The Speedy Trial Act specifies the time limits for the trial of offenses and states the excusable how do you say that word? Excludable, there we go, thank you. Periods of delay. So after reading for a while, you kind of get tongue twisted, right? The de facto Congress of the United States passed the Speedy Trial Act, codified as Title 18, United States Code, subsection 3161, Crimes and Criminal Procedures, time limits and exclusions, which set a time limit of 70 days from the filing date of the indictment unless waived. So by you not enforcing, them holding you for more than 70 days is unconstitutional. You waive your right to that claim by you not claiming it. So this is the United States Code. Yeah. Well, if you have a consul, if your consulate officials don't know this, then they're incompetent. So they can't even help you. Exactly, blind leading the blind, like you just said. For the camera, if they can't hear you. It's the blind leading the blind. So this is the United States codes where it says they can't hold you for more than 70 days. That's their law. Also, when the police arrest a suspect to prevent the suspect escape or to preserve evidence, a warrantless arrest may be invalid if the police fail to demonstrate exigent circumstances. What is seizure of property? A seizure of property within the meaning of the Fourth Amendment occurs when there is some meaningful interference with an individual's possessory interest in the property. In some circumstances, warrantless seizures of objects in plain view do not constitute seizures within the meaning of the Fourth Amendment. When executing a search warrant, an officer may be able to seize an item observed in plain view, even if it is not specified in the warrant. The reason why it applies to so-called Hispanics and Latinos is because these terms apply to people without a nationality. So this is dealing with ICE, right? And the color of law of the 14th Amendment. So the reason why it applies to these people is because they don't claim a nationality. Those who are branded Hispanics and Latinos are known in law as civiliter mortuus, a legal term meaning dead in the eyes of the law, or one who has lost all their civil rights. This is dealing with the Inquisition against the Moors, right? This is where we get to the, where most people wake up, they start talking about admiralty law and being lost at sea. That's what that is. Not only this, but pursuant to res judicata, a legal phrase meaning a thing already decided or the decision of a judge, a person cannot be deported unless the government of the country in which they are being deported accepts them. Now, this is dealing with case law dealing with that. This is also the understanding that fits with what we know about the view of the law outside of Congress. In an early decision by Judge Leonard Hand, the Second Circuit squarely held that the pre-1996 designations of receiving countries were all subject to the country's acceptance. So they can't deport you unless the country accepts you. So if you claim to be Moorish American, they can't send you anywhere except to the Moorish American government. So that might want to set fire in us in establishing the Moorish American government. Right? Again, more case law stating that you can't be deported unless the government accepts you. An alien cannot be deported to any country unless its government is willing to accept him or her into its territory. So this is just case law stating that. Feel free to pause the video on this so you can see for yourself, because I'm not going to read all this because there's a lot to read. But just know the information is out there. And I got it, and here's a link to the case where I got this information. Now this is dealing with what I said earlier, because I like to jump ahead of myself.
Hold on one second. Caseslaw.blindlaw.com/us3/supreme-4/543/335.html.
So in the instance where a person is held by ICE for any amount of time, a writ of habeas corpus should be filed with the courts pursuant to Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2.
Okay.
Zoom in on what?
Just keep it zoomed a little bit. Yeah.
That just makes it hard to read.
Okay.
That's fine. So this is the Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2, excuse me. The federal courts must intervene and honor the writ pursuant to the United States Supreme Court decision in Younger versus Harris, excuse the typo, when absolutely necessary for protection of constitutional rights. Courts of the United States have the power to enjoin state officers from instituting criminal acts. Now, this doesn't just apply to state officers, it applies to ICE officials as well. Right? Now, this is dealing with the United States Code on habeas corpus. So please write this down if you don't know it. I'm not going to read all of it because, again, I'm only on page 4 out of 14.
For everyone asking about what he's reading, this was something that Jamal wrote himself.
Yeah. Oh, the link? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I could just put this on the website for free too, since, you know, it's a huge problem that needs to be fixed. Also, this is another one dealing with habeas corpus.
I'm gonna have to turn off the air because I'm listening to it fine.
Well, it's going to be hot in here, so they're going to have to deal with it.
So we did get a new mic once, by the way, and this is what it is. So if you want us to have better audio, send in your mics, please.
Or just come to class.
Or come to class.
So we commonly, connotatively, and erroneously use the adjective black in regards to any dark-skinned person. Often, our people will force a false black history on others, stating that all people come from black people. As an example, many of our people insist that Haitians, Dominicans, Tainos / Puerto Ricans, and others come from black people or the black race. The intent behind that statement that they all stem from black people is true, but the statement itself is wrong. We are not black, we are Moors. Those Dominicans, Haitians, Tainos, etc. do not come from blacks, they are descendants of Moors, hence the Spanish word moreno and morena, or I read that wrong, morena and moreno. The Moors of North America have been branded black by European colonial occupiers of our land in order to strip us of our illustrious history. Now also, if you go to so-called Puerto Rico, which is really Puerto Rican, and also I think in Haiti and Cuba, I think, there's a Santa Isabella, which is dealing with Queen Isabel, which is dealing with King Ferdinand and the merger of their kingdoms to fight against the Moors. Right? Do your history. Also, once the Moors were expelled from Al-Andalus, which is now called Spain, after the fall of the Moorish kingdom Granada in 1493, guess what they called Colombia? New Granada. Right? Now, why would they call Colombia New Granada if the people in Granada had dark skin? Right? Why would Horace Butler, in his book, When the Rocks Cry Out, claim that the Aztecs dressed just like the Moors? That the Aztecs had Moorish government? That the Aztecs had Moorish architecture? Right? Our ancient Moabite, Canaanite, and Hittite bloodlines tie us to the ancient Olmecs of Central Amexem, the Aztecs, and even the Dogon of Mali. Our ancient ancestors are the possessors of the great ancient cities and kingdoms such as Sumer, Mari, Timbuktu, Carthage. What's that place in Colombia called? What? Come here, say that on camera. What's that place in Colombia called?
Cartagena.
What does that say right there?
Carthage.
Is there or is there not a linguistic similarity with those two words? Right? Then if you get my third book, in the back of the book, you'll see where I reference different Spanish and Arabic words to show you that it's the same language. Cordoba, Mauritania, and Tamari, right? Our disconnect from recognizing our ancient bloodline, nationality, and heritage is the very reason why the pale-skinned black nations of Europe have been administering the earth. Also, since we think that we're separate people, because we keep judging each other based on shades of brown, we think that the South Americans aren't Moors, when in fact they are Moors. So since we keep disconnecting ourselves from them, we see their plight as a different plight than ours, when it's really the same goddamn fight. It's just a different language. When in fact, it's your language, you just don't know it.
We've had slavery, we've had colonization,
Because we're the same people.
we've had
Everything that so-called black people are going through right now and have been going through, so-called Spanish people have been going through the same thing. Why? Because we're the same goddamn people.
it's just, we actually feel like so-called Latinos actually know less about what they've been put through.
But so-called Latinos, at least they have a name. We got crayon colors. Right? Although you're not Colombian, at least they can claim I'm Colombian. Because they're not Christopher Columbus. At least they can say that. At least they have a flag. Black people don't have a flag. That red, black, and green, that's not a flag. That represents no nation, no government, no nothing. At least the Colombians have a flag. And at least the South Americans have been fighting for their independence, although the United States have been constantly involved in coups in those governments for the past at least 200 years. Scratch that, 400 years. So at least your people are fighting for your own independence. Yeah. 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 On your homeland. Yeah. Yeah, it's bullshit. And a lot of our people don't know about the atrocities that are happening on the islands in Central America and South America. Because we're so worried about our own black bullshit that we don't see how we have a big Moorish problem.
Puerto Rico could be saved by this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most of it, not all of it. Okay, do most.
Yeah. Let's sell drugs. I mean, there's nothing wrong with selling, cannabis. That's an actual plant, but yeah. We still have a nigger mindset. Yeah. Yeah, no. That's not how it's supposed to be. Yeah, exactly. And the prophet said, if you're going to learn a second language, learn Spanish. And when the prophet... Yeah. 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 And in 1928, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali attended the Pan American Conference at Havana, Cuba, which, from that conference, came the concept of the Organization of American States. Why? Because the Prophet Noble Drew Ali was trying to organize the American states. Don't believe me? Why else would he be going down there to a Pan American conference? Preaching that we're Moors. If he wasn't trying to reconnect or reunite the Moorish Empire here in the Western Hemisphere. So his definition of blackamoor, any dark-skinned person. So no, you're not Afro-Latina, you're a goddamn Moor. Here's what a Moor looks like. Look, straight hair, not even woolly, because we got straight hair too. This is what an Arab looks like. Dark skin, so stop playing. Moors were commonly supposed to be very dark in color. Here's another Moor. Here's two Moors. Different shades of brown. That's a fez. That's a turban. This is a divan. These are Moors. So this is that Noah Webster's American Heritage Dictionary on the English language, where it says American is a native of America, originally applied to the aboriginals or copper-colored races, meaning we have various shades of brown found here by the Europeans, which means we're already here. So, can you come here, please? And can you come up here, Ellie? Just put your fist on the camera.
Captain Planet.
If you don't look like anything like this, you ain't American.
Even though he's been in the house.
They weren't able to hear anything?
I don't know, but somebody said that no, they can't hear us now.
How long ago was that?
Getting sound back, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I have to change the batteries. How about now? Mic check. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Great, thank you. I apologize. This is what we're dealing with. It's not the best equipment. So, I mean, you know, although it was pretty goddamn expensive.
It was.
So,
So you want to rewind like 4 minutes ago?
yeah, I'm just not going to read all of it.
Yeah.
So this is what black is. We're not this. This is what an American is. Various copper tone natives. This is what copper tone looks like. We're the Americans. Right? Da 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 da. These words share the root word mu, which means water. So going back, they try to say that the Maroons of Jamaica are shipwrecked Africans, when in fact Moors are known as a sea-fretting people. We've been traveling across the seas, oceans, lakes, rivers for at least 4,000 years. At least. Now this is important to note because again, they always try to say that the dark-skinned people in America are either slaves or that we're shipwrecked, when that's not true because we just been here. And then this is explaining how Al Moroccan is American. And this is explaining how the purpose to brand us Negro, Black, Colored, Spanish, and Indian was by no mistake. They did it deliberately to make us non-descendable in law and to put us through the very harsh mistreatments that we're going through right now. That was the reason why they branded us, to separate us from connecting to our ancestors and the land that we're on, which is rightfully ours. Because with the connection of knowing that this is our land, we realize, since these Europeans don't belong here and this is our land, our people shouldn't be getting naturalized by them. If anything, our people should be coming to us. Which then brings to our mind that we need to start acting as a government. We need to start acting as adults. We need to stop twerking in videos, right? Waving guns in videos and actually do something like a goddamn adult, right? The Moroccan Empire has been systematically divided and is now administered by Christian European powers, such as Spain, Britain, France, Germany, and the Union of Colonies known as the United States. One of the last meetings that took place before the division of the Moroccan Empire was held in Berlin, known as the Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885, and guess who was born 1886? The first patriot of the Moorish nation, Prophet Noble Drew Ali. The denationalization process also disconnects us from our vast, illustrious history and places us in a wardship status, providing room for Europeans to escheat our estate. So look up these words if you don't know them in the Black's Law Dictionary law book that I told you to get in the beginning of the class if you don't have one.
If you don't have one, just download
Yeah, if you don't have one, go to riseofthemoors.org. You can get it for free.
click on
Click on products. Just go through the whole website. Right. So now dealing with the brand of names. The name Dominican is derived from Saint Dominique. So you can't be Dominican if Dominican is not a nationality. Don't tell them that. The truth is art, and the truth needs no apology. Just like I'm telling our people they're not black.
It's hard to tell people they're not doing that.
That's why I'm not telling them. They're going to watch the video and figure it out for themselves, those who are looking for the truth. I don't personally tell people what they're not.
Do you remember when you were walking around the Heights and somebody opened the door and I told him he's not Dominican? He's like, I'm not Dominican?
Yeah.
I was like, no.
That's why you should do that.
You gotta know.
So,
What?
They gotta know.
so, the Order of Preachers, also known as the Dominican Order, is a Catholic religious order founded by the Spanish priest Dominic in France, approved by the Pope. Members of the order are referred to as Dominicans. So now, if you claim to be Dominican, you're claiming that you're part of the Spanish priest organization who have authority from the Pope to do what? Let's keep reading. Following the death of Dominique, the establishment of the Inquisition against the Moors in 1231, several members of the Dominican order became Inquisitionists. So now you're saying, by claiming to be Dominican, that you're waging war against your own people. That's not my opinion. That's what the history says. The Inquisition of Europe and North Alkebulan, which has been branded Africa, which when you look up the etymology of Africa, you will see that it only applied to modern-day Morocco, Tunis, and Tripoli, because that was the only contact that the Europeans had with modern-day Africa at that time. Then over time, it began to apply to the entire continent. So the entire continent of Africa is not called Africa. Don't believe me? Look it up.
That makes sense because they're working as far as for Cambodia, as far as they're deporting a lot of Haitians from Haiti from their own island, saying that they're not supposed to be there.
Right.
And housing and citizenship,
Right.
which is true.
That's a big issue that's going on in Haiti right now.
Say it again.
I know, Elliot and Mike, there's a big issue on Haiti where they're deporting Haitians who are not claiming their citizenship in Haiti and they're getting deported from the island.
Where are they going?
They're putting them from one side of the Dominican Republic saying that you're not Dominican, you need to go over there.
To Haiti? So they're deporting so-called Dominicans to Haiti,
Yeah. Or the whole
or Haitians to so-called
The Dominican is the order of the Pope.
Yeah.
Using that umbrella to say you're Spanish.
Yeah.
Deport your own people and serve the crown.
Yeah.
So you can get these special
Show your allegiance to the crown.
crowns.
Yeah.
You as the lighter complexion Dominicans take control of the islands.
Yeah.
Make the darker ones do whatever. And the thing is, the dark-skinned Dominicans is looking at another skin.
Yeah.
Say, oh, say this is Spanish so they can see it. Let's keep this Spanish.
Yeah.
The way they do it.
So now they're trying to divide you by language.
Language.
And which is dumb because we're all going through this. So by us saying, well, you speak Spanish, so well, I'm not going to associate with you even though I'm a black man and I'm being oppressed and your people's fucking being oppressed. I'm not going to associate with you because you're not black. That's dumb.
But the thing is, the equalizer is when you come up here, which is the
Yeah.
everyone, because there's levels of this. When you go further down the equator, the quote-unquote Spanish or divided state people are considered the European or the controllers of the
Yeah.
So once you're up here, they're like, hey, Dominican,
Yeah.
hey, how you doing? We're talking now, but when we're down there, you're like, yo, we need to go over there. Just like the vibe.
Yeah.
Once we're up here,
It's different.
European, you need to submit to man, and we are kind of
Yeah, we're all under that.
under that, so we kind of fight amongst ourselves in scraps.
Yeah.
And they're controlling everything from top to bottom to bottom to bottom.
Wow, I didn't know that. Now I know. You learn something new every day. Right? So, the Inquisitionists of Europe began to instruct their counterparts in America or West Morocco of the encomienda system. Huh? Thank you. Muchas gracias. Encomienda was a Spanish/Spaniard labor and caste system, which is exactly what you just explained. It rewarded conquerors with papal sanction of forced, no, not forced servitude perpetrated against conquered Moors. It was first established in Spain, then used during the Christian conquest of Moorish territories known as the Crusades. It was applied on a much larger scale during the Spanish Inquisition and colonization of the Americas and the Philippines, who are really Moros. Conquered Moors were considered vassals of the Spanish monarch. They were even branded Spanish to remove them from their heritability, which is why most Moors of South America refers to themselves as Spanish. The Christian crown awarded an encomienda as a grant to a particular individual who showed no remorse through their heinous acts of murdering innocents and the like, while of course giving thanks to the Pope and claiming to defend the faith of Christianity against the infidels. Yet, the promotion of the spread of dogmatic Christianity is in fact a diversion from the real objective, being political and administrative control over the planet. So they march in the name of God, claiming to bring our people religious freedom, when in fact they're trying to free our people's mind from their connection to their land and inject them with the Constantinopolitan creed, now known as Christianity, which it is not Christianity. That's why when you see a lot of our so-called Spanish friends, right, in Spanish family, they got the Pope's picture in their house, right? Santa Maria Zola in their house, images of Jesus Cristo in their house, pale skin, right? They're devout Catholics, right? Because they don't know that they're suffering from Inquisition operations waged against them. They don't know it, which is dealing with unum sanctum. When you read up or when you do your research on unum sanctum, the popes declared that is no salvation outside of the Catholic Church. That's unum sanctum, meaning the one holy, the only salvation. Following the conquering of the Aztec Empire and the fall of Montezuma, the Spanish, or the Spaniards, who are people known as conquistadors, not only began to refer to themselves as the Mexica, or Mexicans, but began to brand the aboriginal peoples of the empire, such as the people of Haiti. Conquistadors is a term used to refer to the soldiers and explorers of the Spanish Empire or the Portuguese Empire in a general sense, and is derived from the word conqueror. Conqueror is one who wins a country, subjugates a people, or defeats an adversary. Those who remain conquered refer to themselves as the name that the conquerors gave them. This is evident in the coat of arms of the Dominican Republic compared to other South American states. So when you look at the coat of arms of Dominican Republic, there's a cross and a lamb. When you look at the coat of arms of Haiti, there's a fez and cannons and swords and their flag, representing that they will fight for their own freedom. But in the Dominican Republic, there's a Christian cross and the so-called Lamb of God, which tells you that they're conquered. Go ahead.
There's a citadel, though, that's the largest man-made citadel or on a mountain. That's
Yeah.
protecting the whole nation that is being built. That was the biggest throughout the years until further the U.S. built it. We had that to protect the whole area after we were fighting against
In Haiti?
the French, the Europeans, all of that.
Yeah.
Janelle's first book, How Do You Confuse Love Law? Is actually out of stock right now, but we'll
Additionally, the same branding applies to the Musica. How do you say that?
Muisca.
Muisca.
Oh, no. I think you have it spelled wrong,
Nah, that's how it's spelled.
but it should be
There's probably various spellings.
yeah.
Or the peoples of the Inca Empire, which consisted of all of South America. The Musica were known for their golden cities and is where the story of El Dorado is based on. When studying, what, the typo? What?
Nah, that's how you spell music. Música in Spanish, so probably just there's a lot of spelling.
So in contrast to present-day Colombia, Venezuela, and Ecuador, you will inevitably come across a common ancestry to the Musica, who were in fact Muslim. Not only this, but the national flags of said countries are essentially the same. This is what they look like. So you cannot tell me that they're different freaking people. And before it was Colombia, Venezuela, and Ecuador, it was called what? Gran Colombia, which means what? Big magic. Big Colombia. Right? And before that, it was called what? New Granada.
Yeah. And before that,
What was it called before that?
Federation.
There you go. Right? So this is what the Prophet taught us in chapter 45 of the Holy Quran. The fallen sons and daughters of the Asiatic nation of North America need to learn to love instead of hate. Now, I was on a panel in New York with a few people, and there was a brother up there claiming that, well, if you look up his social media, he claims that we can't trust the so-called Latinos when they're going through the same shit we're going through.
Because
That's based on hate, not love. That's why the Prophet said we need to learn to love instead of hate, because if we got rid of that hatred in our hearts, we would see we're going through the same shit.
excuse me, both sides, because there are some Latinos who are racist against
Oh, yeah.
darker people, and there are dark people who are racist against Latinos.
So you communicate to them in Spanish, I'll tell the so-called blacks in English,
Yes,
and we'll just attack it that way.
Yes, that's the only way it's gonna work.
That's the only way it's going to work.
So, I mean, because they prefer you are separated.
Yeah.
That's the two main languages that we separate. Spanish and Portuguese and French Creole, which is really big in all parts of the world too.
Yeah.
Between you and I, we got with French.
And know their higher self and lower self. This is the uniting of the Holy Quran of Mecca for teaching and instructing all Moorish Americans, etc. The key of civilization was and is in the hands of the Asiatic nations. The Moors, who were ancient Moabites and the founders of the holy city of Mecca. The Egyptians, who were the Hammatites and are a direct descendant of Mizraim, the Arabians, the seed of Hagar, Japanese and Chinese. The Hindus of India, the descendants of the ancient Canaanites, Hittites, and Moabites of the land of Canaan. This is why they branded us Indian, because we're the same people. When you look up Hindustan, you'll see the Mauryan dynasty, which were Moors. Then look up the invasion, which really wasn't an invasion, of Europe in 711, and you'll see in 1622, guess where the Caliphate Moors were? The Umayyads, right? Guess where they were? In so-called India. The Moorish Empire extended to so-called India at the time, or during the same time period, that General Tariq ibn Zayed marched across the Straits of Gibraltar. No, this is from my second book.
Right now from a second book, but what
Yeah,
you
no,
have.
all of that, all of this, 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 all the way up to this point right here is from my second book.
Right. But
This down.
most of the information is just something that you compile on your Word document.
This
People are
down.
asking online if it's coming from your first book.
Yeah, no, this, from this point down is my second book.
Look at the other name.
How you say that?
Chipcha.
Tipcha. Now, where was I? Just keep scrolling. Just keep scrolling. Boom. The Asiatic nations of North, South, and Central America, the Moorish Americans and Mexicans of North America, Brazilians, Argentinians, Chileans in South America, Colombians, Nicaraguans, and the natives of San Salvador and Central America, etc. All of these are Muslims. Which means there should be no Moors wearing a turban and fez turning our people away. And if they do, send them to me. And they'll be met with justice. So that's the end of the slide. I mean, that's the end of the presentation. Any questions? Any questions?
How can we, for people going through, for people who know people who are going through this process of whether they're being threatened to get deported, sometimes ICE just harasses people for fun.
You mean all the time?
Yeah.
Because they have no lawful authority to do anything, so everything that they do is harassment and terrorism?
What can we, what direction, what can we tell people are the first steps to do when dealing with the situation?
Nationalize. Declare your Moorish nationality, because when you look up nationality in the law book, it is what determines your political status, meaning your ability or inability to enforce your rights. So if you claim to be something that's not your bloodline, you have no rights. Just like it says in the Bible, you know, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and all these things will be added onto you. Since most of our people think that they're Christians and Catholics because of what the Inquisitions have done to them, then you know that is in the Bible and you know that's true. So in short, seek ye first your nationality and you have all your rights. You'll have your salvation. That's what that means.
What about those who are scared to give up their nationality, say Puerto Rican or Dominican?
So
What if they're scared to throw away their nationality to take on something where they feel like they don't belong? They're not from there. They're not from Morocco. They're not.
okay, so those are valid questions, but their concepts on what their nationality is wrong because one, Dominican is not your nationality. We just went over that. Second, Puerto Rican is not a nationality. That's what the United States branded Borican. So you can't claim that to be your nationality. What their concerns are is giving up their culture. But you're not giving up your culture. When you study salsa and all these so-called Spanish dances, they're really African in origin. You just don't know that they're Moorish. So all you have to do is gain a clearer concept on where you actually come from. Because if you're born in North, South, or Central America, you're born in Morocco. Because North, South, and Central America is Morocco. You're Moorish, you just don't know it. And you've been practicing Moorish culture, you just call it Spanish culture, or you call it Dominican, or you call it Puerto Rican. When you go down to Broad Street, which is called Juan Pablo Duarte Boulevard, which is where I grew up, before I had a beard and all this hair, I used to be called Dominican all the time. I was like, no, I'm not Dominican, I'm black. We don't even look different. Go up and down Broad Street right now, you'll see what? Asiatics smoking hookah outside their place of business. Look up Moors. You'll see Moors in history smoking hookah. What's the difference? Same culture. Right? People from the islands like sugarcane, right? That's what they eat. Haitians do it, right? I was introduced to it by Jamaicans, so Haitians and Jamaicans, they do the same thing. That's the same culture. What are you talking about? You got to give anything up.
So these questions are to help other people.
No, I know.
People in certain
Go study at rvbaypublications.com. Then, if you want some good stuff, which RV Bay has amazing work, so I'm not comparing my stuff to theirs. I just value what I put together. So if you want some like heat, go to riseofthemoors.org.
There's beginners information, there's intermediate and expert,
Yes.
aka.
And rvbaypublications.com has amazing work, literature. That's where I first started. Well, that's where I first would buy my Moorish literature.
Do you want to tell them who RV Bay is?
Yeah, RV Bay Publications. RV Bay is an Asiatic woman. Her name is Roz Mariah V. Bay. Her and other Moors put together this website. You can learn literally, you can almost learn everything you need to learn here.
She's probably one of our most prominent living heroes slash elders that we have to learn from.
I'm not sure how to spell her name.
I think ROZ.
R-O-Z? No. Nah. Roz. I think it's one word. Roz Mariah. This is her. It's not the most flattering picture, so I'm not going to click on it. But, no, yeah, that's her. What?
Google messes
And
around.
then if you have
That means
elected
DuckDuckGo.
officials,
Anyway,
make sure you know what their duties are and their duty as a elected, their officials are, their capacity to enforce certain rights
yeah.
for them to do. If they're not going to say they have a position, then make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yes. So the main thing that our people need to do is correct their status. Your status is your mental competence, not paperwork, period. So correct your thinking. Stop thinking that so-called blacks and so-called Hispanics are two different people. We're the same people. Stop thinking that Europeans are Americans. They're not Americans. We are the Americans. Stop thinking that these Europeans have any lawful authority to do anything that they're doing, because they absolutely don't. The only way that they're supposed to be speaking to us is as it relates to the treaty that the Moors have with the Europeans, right? Also, can you give me that document that I had you put to the side, please? For our Mexican brothers and sisters, you have a treaty with the United States. Can they see that on camera? In the treaty with the Republic of Mexico and the Republic of the United States, Article 8. Now, the reason why I know about this treaty is because I'm Mexican. Why? Because Mexican are Moors, and I'm Moorish. So this applies to me and my people.
And
Exactly. Right? Article 8. Article 8 of this treaty says, Mexicans now established in territories previously belonging to Mexico, and which remain for the future within the limits of the United States, as defined by the present treaty, shall be free to continue where they now reside, or to remove at any time to the Mexican Republic, retaining the property which they possess in said territories, and disposing thereof, and removing the proceeds wherever they please, without their being subjected on this account to any contributions, tax, or charge whatsoever. So they just told you in your treaty with them that you have rights to be here. Period. And those territories that they're talking about Texas. You have the right to be there without a green card, without U.S. citizenship. California, you have the right to be there without a green card, without U.S. citizenship. The state of Washington, Colorado, New Mexico. Basically 90% of the West Coast, you have the right to be there because that is Mexico. a book for a MacBook Pro. What's the condition of the MacBook Pro?
They said it works great. Also, that document that he was just holding, that was a certified
This
copy
is the,
from
yeah, this is from the Library of Congress. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo of 1848, which I talk about in my third book.
Any questions in the chat? Moors, any questions for the Grand Sheik? Now is the time. What's the LOC code?
Want to hold it up for them? Just show them the whole title, because that's, when you go to the Library of Congress, duplication services, they're going to ask you for the specific name of the document, so just put that whole name in. So it is the Public Statutes at Large of the United States of America, Volume 9, Treaty of Peace, Friendship, Limits, and Settlement with the Republic of Mexico, February 2nd, 1848. That's what it is. So this treaty states that Mexicans have the right to be here in North America because this is their homeland. Any other questions?
If someone was adopted and does not know their original parents, how does one go about claiming nationality?
That's a tough one because you have to know who your parents are.
But I mean, if you have dark skin, you can still choose.
If you have
to
dark
select
skin,
your
there's a
allegiance.
99% chance
You're
you're
a
a
Moor
Moor.
somehow. I mean,
Only if you're sort of canon.
Now remember, Prophet Noble Drew Ali said just because you were born here, that does not make you a citizen. The only thing that makes you a citizen of the Moorish nation is your active participation in civics. That's what makes you a citizen, when you participate in civic engagement. So although you are a Moor by blood, that does not make you a Moorish citizen. That makes you a Moorish national, but that does not make you a Moorish citizen. Because in order to receive the rights protected to you, or the rights that protect you, you have to be part of a state, meaning you have to be part of a group of Moors. What? Ask the question. I'm sure, just ask it.
just repeat that again.
So citizenship is clothing, as an example, when you naturalize someone and they become a citizen of your country, they are clothed with rights as if they were native, right? But you can be a national and not a citizen of your own people.
Right.
Just like the blacks, they're Moorish nationals, but they're not citizens because they don't claim their nationality. So they're outcasts. So they don't get protected with Moorish honor. So the only way to be protected with Moorish honor is for you to be around who? Moors, and claim that you're what? A Moor. Or if you're not a Moor, if you're European, you can get naturalized and be clothed with citizenship as if you were a Moor. That's the difference between nationality or being a national and being a citizen. And since this is a free national government, only Moors can be government officials. So there should be no pale-skinned people with fezzes on ruling, controlling our government. That's why the Europeans wear fezzes in secret. Right? So if you're adopted, just do your best to figure out who your parents are. And chances are, if you got dark skin like this, or if you've been called Hispanic in your life, or Spanish, or Latino, or African American, or Dominican, or whatever, or Mexican, you're Moor. And anyone telling you otherwise either hates you, has hate in their heart, or is greedy. Any other questions?
Are Moors other than Muslim like a Hebrew?
Hebrew is not a noun. The word Hebrew means to cross over. That's in relationship to when the continents were connected and the Atlantic was a river, we crossed the river, so they called us the Ibri, or the Hebrew, because we crossed the river. Now, as it relates to a religious philosophy, the so-called Hebrew religion, the so-called Christian religion, all of religions all stem from Zoroastrianism, which is really Kemetic science. So there's only one religion on this planet. And when you read chapter 10 of the Holy Quran prepared by Prophet Noble Drew Ali, when Jesus tells the people that there's only one God, we just have different names for him or her, it, you'll see that there is only one religion. So your Moorish nationality is your bloodline. Your religious belief is between you and your creator, no one else. So you can be a Moor and you can be Christian. You can be a Moor and you can be a Muslim. You can be a Moor and you can be a Buddhist. You can be a Moor and you can practice Confucianism. You can be a Moor and you can practice whatever religion you want, because that's your private business. But who you are, who you have allegiance to, that's different. So you know when Moors talk about public and private? Private is your religion. Public is your nationality. That's who you have allegiance to. That's when you see enemies at your front door. I don't care if you got a kufi on or a fez. If you claim to be a Moor and you standing with me, I'm standing with you. I don't care what you worship. I don't care if you call God Allah, or if you call God Shen, or if you call God Jehovah, or if you call God Zeus. I don't care. You claim to be a Moor? You know these people stomping on our front doors? You standing next to me? You're a Moor. That's how that works. That's who you have allegiance to, your nationality, not your religious belief.
Everyone's asking about my favorite, your first book.
Out of stock.
Out of stock, but will be in stock soon. Your first book is called?
Are you confused about law? Any other questions?
Called?
RosalindMoores.org. Any other questions? No questions, no way. So we talk about ICE deportation, there's no questions? I don't believe that.
I'm in the chat. Moors, you know you don't want to sign out, so ask the question.
We're going live, we're staying live all day. We have nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Live? Nah, we don't need to eat, sleep, none of that.
How can we deport them?
How can we deport them? We have to organize first. Moors have zero organization. That's a fact. Look how many people are in this room. Count them.
Let's have a common something to do. How can we do
How about we move to one area first? How about that?
that intent of we have to move to one area to talk about how we're going to build a community to do that thing we want.
To do that in the future, yeah. Because we can't deport no one without a sultan.
But we are working on chat, everyone chat, all you beautiful nobles. We are working on claiming some properties for Rise of the Moors University. So we're asking for Moors to be out here. Hold on.
You want to sit on camera? Oh, yeah, sit right here. No, sit down. Come sit. I see the bathroom anyway. You're de facto Grand Sheik now.
Oh, wow. So, we are having an event January 8th on Prophet Noble Drew Ali's birthday. We are asking Moors to come out here to our territory at 23 Acorn Street, Providence, Rhode Island, 02903. We're going to be here to have people add their names to kind of like a petition, so we can attach it to the claim and show them that we are here and we stand in unison and we are a nation. You have to recognize us. The land that we're looking at is quite a few properties that the quasi-corporation called Rhode Island Housing, which is Rhode Island Housing here, the housing authority is the people who run Section 8 and things like that. They have these blocks of properties, and I think they paid about $170,000, and the tax exempt they have on it is $170, and they've been abandoned for the last 5-6 years now. So when there is property that's abandoned, it's not being used for anything, because you know they're just holding these properties
so they can wait for gentrification, because they're maintained, grass is cut, paint is fresh, but it just, they're keeping it abandoned. So when something like that is abandoned, you can do something called adverse possession, which is a legal term. It's in our Rhode Island general laws. You can look it up in whatever state you're in. I'm not saying to do this unless you know, don't do anything unless you know what you're doing. Caveat emptor, may the buyer beware. But adverse possession is a claim that you can put in a claim in court, or you can file it with the city clerk to just claim some land that is abandoned. So there was a woman here in Rhode Island, her case was from 2011 or 2012, and there was some land behind her house. It was abandoned, she wanted it for her farm or whatever, and she put in a claim and nobody argued against it, so the land is hers. It's that simple. This is already your land, Morris, so it's not that hard. All we have to do is claim it. And so January 8th, if any of you can be here, January 8th, please, please, please come support. We're trying to get this university going. It's all ages. We've got teachers. And we need more. We need more teachers. We need more builders, electricians, plumbers, whatever you are, whatever you can do and be, we definitely appreciate that. Come out, help, support. Thank you very much. Peace.
What's that called? Charades.
Yeah, that was good.
Any questions? Any other questions?
Let's see, sorry, I wasn't in the mic, so I guess they couldn't really hear me.
Still on. Is there any difference from when I hold this tiny ass mic?
Yes.
Is there? Are they saying yes?
I don't know. Ask them if they heard anything I said.
Mic check. Ask questions because I don't want to leave.
There's a PDF copy of Are You Confused About Law? If we pay the amount required, then wait for a physical copy.
That sounds like a lot of work. Because then we have to, nah, they can download it automatically, but then we'd have to keep track of everyone who bought the book and then mail it out. So that's just extra work. But I can make the PDF available. I just have to check some stuff. There's a lot of things going on. Any other questions?
I asked, is there a place or website I can purchase a Fez? I'm from Chicago. One love.
Only place I know of is a European corporation. There's a Moor named Cosmo L, I think. He makes fezzes, so just Google his name. He's a Moor. I'd rather have you get it from Moors than Europeans.
So, ask them if they heard what I said, 'cause
Did you hear what she said?
I said could make a big difference about that.
The mic?
Yeah, they said it made a big difference when you picked it up tomorrow.
Oh. Well, you need to read the comments. No, we're not signing out.
Oh my goodness.
She's trying to take y'all away from me. Don't let her do it.
They don't have any questions for you.
There's no way. All right. Y'all better not ask me nothing on Facebook. Y'all better not email me. Nah, seriously,
Talk about Wednesday.
you want to talk about that?
Okay.
There you go.
He wants to talk to you, but he doesn't want to talk to you.
I want to answer questions.
He wants to answer.
I'll be a salesman.
Sir. He doesn't like to promote himself, so that's my job now, apparently. Okay, so there's an event going on in Texas. Port Arthur, Texas, October 26th. We have a few other people joining us. Now, they aren't nationalized Moors, but they are people who can bring in other so-called black people so they can get this information. So it's a really good look for everybody. It's a really great event. We have Grand Sheikh Jamal Talib Abdullah Bey. We have Jamar Milton. We have Tazara Path, and which she was a big hit, I think, at the last panel that you were on. She talked a lot about Moorish women being submissive to their men. And then, no, people don't like that, but it's really good to hear. And I think necessary in some cases. Who else is going? Oh, Yurima Karama will be there as well. And hopefully that guest list will expand by the time that it comes up. So it is October 26th. You can get the tickets on riseofthemoors.org. If you go to the top right of the page, there's 3 straight lines. Click on that menu button. Click on services. Click on products. Scroll down to where it says services. And then you will see the Texas Meetup event. That's the event in October. You will also see name and proclamation correction papers if that's something that you want. That service is available as well. It's downloadable off the website. You will also see on that same thread the Wednesday group chat with Grand Sheikh Jamal Talib Abdullah. He's available every single Wednesday. I suggest you buy it at the beginning of the month. I mean, if you have to buy it in the middle of the month, that's fine, but it's not like a rolling calendar. It starts at the beginning of the month, and you get to speak to him every single Wednesday from 3 to 9 p.m. Excuse me, from 7 to 9 p.m. That's way too long. 7 to 9 p.m. every single Wednesday. That should be 4 Wednesdays. Some months have 5 Wednesdays, so keep that in mind. But that should be a total of at least 12 hours that you get to speak with him of Q&A. And it is a group chat. It's not a huge group chat yet, so it is still small and intimate, which is nice. Any questions for the Grand Sheikh, who's scrolling through the questions right now?
He asked to reconvene because he had a photo shoot for his poster for his greatest hits event.
Yeah, we need some better headshots.
To contact me, text this number.
For legal services.
Yeah, if you need assistance,
The best way is not email.
text. Yeah, no, email's getting crazy.
It's been crazy.
Legal assistance only, not just questions. Questions, that's what the videos are for.
Mhm.
That's what the books are for. This is specifically legal assistance, like
And it is a paid
Europeans are
service.
messing with you.
Right. And just for you Morons who get a little weird about, oh, they're charging this and they're charging that, this is his full-time job and we gotta eat too. So in order for us to be available to you, some things have to be charged, because we can't just keep doing this for free all day and not.
So it's
happen.
401 336 6799. Text that number, and you'll be sent to the Rise of the Moors legal team, and we will make things happen for you by assisting you. And of course, there's a caveat, and you'll get all that information once you text the number with what you need assistance with. Also, there are Moors selling nationality papers for 700 notes, 500 notes, 1,200 notes. All we're asking is to be compensated for our service, which, if you doubt our competence, go to riseofthemoors.org, click on public information, and you'll see the cases that we've gotten dismissed with no European attorney, using nothing but more science.
Simon, somebody asked about Simon Bolivar. Wasn't he one of the people to fight against the conquistadors in South America?
Yeah, is he Colombian or?
Venezuelan.
Venezuelan,
Part of
yeah.
the same thing.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
how
yeah,
he
yep.
was part of Gran Colombia.
Yep.
Is there a way to transact amongst each other privately without notes? Without federal?
Of course, you can barter and trade. The Prophet said, Moors, until you maintain a national treasury, you'll be nothing. The reason why he said that is because the Europeans, via the United States, have been controlling the market via the USD. So the USD creates inflation and stagflation. Inflation means you can buy less items or goods or certain services with more Federal Reserve notes. Stagflation is when basically the economic conditions of your nation is stagnated. I mean, it's not going up and it's not going down. It's just a cesspool of crap. That's what that is. So the United States dollar is meant to do that to lower class Americans, which when you say lower class Americans, they're talking about denationalized Moors and lower class Europeans. Because when you read the definition of legal tender, it'll say it's whatever the parties agree to. So when you talk about bartering, you're talking about legal tender.
Someone says, if I haven't proclaimed, can I still be a member of Rise of the Moors?
Of course. In order to be a member of Rise of the Moors, you have to pay dues into the temple because all of this takes finance to keep running. That's why we offer the Wednesday calls, because your 25 notes a month is your 25 notes for dues. The Moors that actually come here, they pay 10 notes just to come into the class, and that's them paying dues to the temple.
Someone asked my name. Is that how much is it paying me?
No.
Wow. Oh,
My secret agent, I got you in the clip.
how CDL, so I applied for one under my
CDL.
application.
The same way you do it with the straw man. It's just you don't use a social security number.
HR 1624, what's your fate?
HR 1624. Let me look that up right now.
Also that phone number,
I already said it.
somebody just gave it back and said that's it.
What is it?
401-336-6799.
Yep. Da-da-da-da. House Resolution 1624, right?
Yep.
Protecting Affordable Coverage for Employees Act. What the heck? Let me read that.
Fort Knox has gold, American candidate. How do you know Fort Knox has gold? Have you seen it?
What is this? Or are they talking about Municipal Finance Support Act of 2017? Wait, that's the same
It said
thing?
twice, HR 1624.
Yeah, but that's what this says, HR 1624.
Yeah, it was.
Of the 114th Congress or the 115th Congress? All right, I'll just read the one from the 115th Congress. Text. Receive, read twice, in reference to require the appropriate federal banking agencies to treat certain municipal obligations as no lower than 2B liquid assets and for other purposes. The act may be cited as the Municipal Finance Support Act of 2017 in general, blah, 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 for purposes of the final rule titled Liquidity Coverage Ratio, Liquidity Risk Management Standards, final rule, da, 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 da. Peace.
Thanks for stopping by. Good to see you. When are we going back to Afrobeat?
I'm not understanding how any of this has anything to do with Moors.
Yes. Yes, all that.
I don't see how this has anything to do with Moors.
It was like a money from his,
No, it says money for municipalities.
no, the person's name. I don't know, it's screen name.
All right, anyway, sorry for wasting your time. All right, I'll just sign out.
Hold on, somebody, there's a couple more questions. UCCs, do they apply to us?
Get Trust Law 101. and you'll see where I explain what the UCCs are.
Trustlaw.org.
Yep. Excuse me, Trust Law 102, I apologize.
Someone said do UCC on your non-big year.
All right. Thank y'all for tuning in. Peace and love, everyone. Thank you for your support. Hope to see you in Texas. Hope to see you on the Prophet's birthday. If you don't know where I'm at, this is where I'm at. 23 Acorn Street on the 3rd floor, Providence, Rhode Island, 02903. Every Saturday. So no one can say it's so hard to get in touch with Jamal because I just told you where I'm at every Saturday.
One more thing,
Yeah.
this Akasha Day, she said something about going to Secretary of State being the person we go to for enforcement between the U.S. Corp and U.S. Moors/Americans, right?
That doesn't make sense to me. I'm not sure what you're trying to say.
Let me go back to my previous question. We go to Secretary of State to be the go-to to us nationals, North Americans, and the U.S. Court? I think that was the question.
Well, when if you're speaking to them, then you're speaking to the United States. So yes, we're supposed to have our own government and then communicate with their government officials, yes. So we should elect a sultan to speak to the president. We should elect our own city councilmen or aldermen to speak to the city councilmen and women to reflect our conditions here, yes.
That money from Moore's, person or people who made the comment about HR 1624 says some Moors are pushing in their affidavits that HR 1624 is the shutdown of the municipalities.
Read it. Read it and then go down to City Hall and you tell me if they're shut down. I mean, I'm not trying to be a smartass, but if they're saying that's shutting it down, go to City Hall, which is a municipality, go to the county clerk, which is a municipality, go to the police department, which is a municipality, and you tell me if they're shut down. Because last time I checked, on the way here, I seen some municipal policy enforcers driving around. They don't look shut down to me. My cousin was just released from jail. That don't seem shut down to me. I mean, that's what I'm saying. How can the federal government shut down a municipality if there's a separation of powers? If each state is its own independent sovereign state? How? Anyway, any other thing before we close out?
Is it better to leave my child's father under U.S. status if we're not going to be together for custody reasons?
I don't think it's good for any Moor to let any other Moor stay in a nigger mindset. That's just my personal opinion, but what you do in your private life, just know every living thing is bound together by cords to every other living thing. So as long as we have one Moor not knowing that there are more, we're going to have problems as a people.
Shout out to Dr. Robin.
Peace.
All right.
That's it.
Thank you for tuning in.
Thank all of you for showing up. We love you. We wouldn't be here without you because we'd just be three people in a room talking to themselves. So hopefully this information has been useful. Hopefully you will teach some of our so-called Spanish brothers and sisters this information so we can begin to help get the boot of oppression off their neck as well. Thank y'all for tuning in.